Facebook.
And then let me see if I can do this. Let's see here. Live on Facebook. This is always, I'm cautious with this. Sometimes it gets kind of funny.
And this is a very laid back conversation, Melanie, too. So just just us three girls just talking,
You bet.
we're sitting in a room and stuff. So very laid back.
You bet.
All
I did
right.
get a chance. I watched 2, maybe 3 episodes, I think.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
We're getting there. Each episode is getting a little easier too. We're finding our little yeah, exactly.
Your rhythm. Yeah.
That's right. All right. Is it showing on your Facebook, Debbie? It's saying
Meeting is now streaming on live on Facebook.
yeah,
Let me double check.
I always get this weird message that says it's not, but then it does. So
Let me double check on the Facebooks and see. Okay. Refresh. Reload. Oh yes, it says we're live on Facebook. Okay, Facebook.
now when I did that, I lost the, oh wait, hang on. I lost the, I'm gonna pull up your bio again. Somehow it closed out on that.
I'm
But
so excited to have Melanie on today. I can't wait to talk to her
know.
about all the cool
I
stuff she put in
know.
her bio.
Oh, come on already.
Uh-oh. Now I'm not sure I remember what I wrote.
Oh, it was beautiful. Okay.
It was amazing. Yeah.
I got it. Okay. There we go. So hi, everybody. Welcome to Laugh Lines and Turbulence. Thanks for putting up with our making sure it gets on Facebook. We just always want to make sure you guys are able to view this recording, even though we do stream it to YouTube and Spotify as well. But for folks who like to tune in while it's live, we like to make sure that it's working right. So, but anyway, so we're really, really super excited to have Melanie Cohen with us today. And I'm going to read her bio here, and then we will jump in and learn all about what you do, Melanie, and how you're influencing our wonderful world. So, so Melanie is a former competitive gymnast. Her career was funded by her dad's side hustle selling drugs. When she quit gymnastics, she gained weight, and in college, she gained a lot of weight in her pregnancies. And when she hit 30 years old, she reached over 200 pounds. She decided to change her life. She joined Weight Watchers and lost over 60 pounds and became a weight loss coach. And she's been doing that for over 20 years now. She left Weight Watchers in 2022 to start Thoughtfully Coaching, and she does one-on-one coaching. And last year, she created the Design of Your Healthy Life Strategy program. So we are so excited to learn about you, Melanie. And then I want to also highlight, Debbie loved the type of music that you talk about. That you enjoy punk and ska music. And I said, what's ska music? She's like, do you know Gwen Stefani? Absolutely. She's like, that's kind of that.
And the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. And
yeah, I got to learn
that's that's 90. That's 90s ska, but it's okay. I like it all.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then also,
but still the punk is cool too.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. I know punk. I know that. And then also, you also highlighted really interesting information about liking to discuss the relationship between weight and clutter. Yeah. So welcome. Thank you so much for coming on our show. And
thank you for having me.
Yeah. So tell us how you the bio kind of told how your journey started, but kind of after you got through that weight loss and then started your own gig with this. Tell us all.
I had been asked for so long to start my own gig. And I just, every time someone said, oh, you should do this for yourself, you should have your own thing, every time. I don't have time, I don't have the money, and I don't have the entrepreneurial knowledge. And I said that over and over and over again. And then I actually left Weight Watchers for another job. And 5 weeks after I was hired, they laid off over 20% of the company. And so found myself in one of those moments where I was like, I think the spirits are telling me something. And so I could no longer complain that I didn't have time. The money and the entrepreneurial knowledge was like completely different, but I knew that I can gain over time. So I took that as a message. You've already stepped away from what you had been doing for 20 years. I thought I was going to retire there. Like, I just thought like I would wean off my schedule little by little with each decade. And so here I was in my 50s starting my own business, which I've learned apparently like the largest population in starting new businesses is actually women in their 50s. So I was like, okay, great. Then I'm in great company. Um, because I couldn't decide whether I was doing it too late or too early. I mean, like my head was all over the place. And I realized that having put it on hold, I'm not going back in time. I'm not changing anything. What's happened in my past is what has made me who I am and what I am today. But it's like a reminder of like how much mental clutter there was, like, self-limiting beliefs and all the things that we tell ourselves that aren't true. And so yeah, we can talk a lot about weight and clutter, but I think, like what I'm addressing is the mental clutter. Because I think when people first hear that I work in clutter, they're like, oh, she's a minimalist. You can tell. I can't have one picture on the wall. I have to have 20 pictures on the wall. I am a firm believer in things. I love things. I love colors. I love prints. I love polka dots and plaids and herringbones. But our things have energy. And so the things that have positive energy and light us up are the things that we should hang on to. And the things that have negative energy or don't, shine us or light us up, those are the things that we should let go. And the reality is for all this stuff people are dealing with, everyone has a little mental clutter, if not a lot.
For sure. Absolutely. I love how when you were talking about mental clutter and you specified on that, and when you were talking about energy and like negative energy and positive energy and whatnot, and what to let go. Sometimes, how do we figure out? Because sometimes it's hard to let certain things go, and you have to.
Really hard.
You don't know that. You don't know. You get a little confused of the difference of what you should and shouldn't let go.
Well, and I
So
think that's another thing is like that should, like we have for some reason like built in our heads that there are things that we should keep because of what people have told us, as opposed to making the decision for ourselves or not people, but like society tells us that we should honor everything that was passed on to us by our grandmother. And I'm fairly certain neither of my grandmothers would want me to be weighed down by their stuff. And there's like that thing, like the physical weight of our stuff is creates this mental weight and then the connection between weight and clutter. I mean, clutter causes stress and stress leads, I don't know about anybody else, but for a lot of us, stress leads us straight to the kitchen and it doesn't lead us to carrots. It leads us to all of the other crunchy things like cookies and chips and stuff like that. But one of the reasons I came to this that wasn't quite in my bio, and that is that both of my parents have challenges with clutter. One is much worse than the other. I'm not going to say who. They don't live together. They're divorced. And so as an only child, their mess is my mess. And it's really important for me to take care as much of this as possible now because, and this is a conversation I've had with both of them, when they're gone, I know what they want is for my family and I and everybody else that they leave should spend that time honoring them and talking about them and laughing and telling stories, not stressing out because there is so much to clean up. We don't have the time to mourn. We're just like diving into the mess. And so both of my parents are much more willing to do this, but because of my stress over what their stuff does to me, I knew I needed a little help there. But one of my dearest friends in the world owns a high-end personal organizing business. She would lean more into the words inventory manager. She moves people, like she'll come to your house, you don't have to touch a thing.
Mm-hmm.
You show up at your new house, you don't have to touch a thing, it's all done. And a lot of other things like doing digital inventory of everything someone owns, so that you have like the crystal, the china, the electronics, the jewelry, the everything
Mm-hmm.
for tax and estate purposes. And I went to work with her for a little bit as I was starting my own business. I wanted to see another woman in business in action, none of the men. Like, that's it. I wanted to see a woman in action. And as I was working with her, I said, you know what, there's something here. There is something about this connection between our stuff and our weight. And we are weighed down by a lot more than our stuff. And that's physical and mental. So that's kind of there was a circuitous path in getting to where I am. But once we clear the clutter, whether it's physical or mental, we are capable of so much more.
Wow. I just find it amazing how you made that connection. And we don't even think about that stuff. And when you were saying like your parent, even when you were talking about your parents' stuff becomes your stuff. Oh man, like this whole generational like trauma and curses that get handed down unintentionally in a way and subconsciously. It's like, you don't even know until like you're much older and in the thick of it that you've, taken on all that stuff in a way.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think I have told my kids on numerous occasions, I'm not leaving you this mess. I promise you, I'm not leaving you this mess, and if you want stuff, you can have it now. Like, if you really want it. One of my daughters already lives out of the house. The other one is in the middle of apartment hunting. And,
Mhm.
how, what would be an easy way for me to declutter stuff? Do you want this? Do you want this? Do you want this? Do you want this?
Mhm.
But I also don't want my kids to feel like they have to say yes to anything.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right. Wow.
That's so
Very
amazing.
interesting.
Well, and
Mhm.
even the whole, like when you connect it to food and like, you just wonder, like my big downfall is like Doritos, and I've been trying to keep away from those things as much as possible, but it's like the whole letting go, right? It's like, well, that's what I like. That's my favorite thing, and it's my treats once in a while, but it's that hanging on to that too, which
Mhm.
Mhm.
kind of makes me wonder if I'm kind of messed up.
Well, I think it's when I hear people say things like, oh, no, no, no. When I'm stressed and depressed, I can't eat. And I'm like, all I've wanted my whole life was to be that way. I wanted to be the
Yeah.
person that's like, oh, no, I couldn't possibly eat right now, as
Mhm.
opposed to give me everything and give it to me all at once. Well, not everything. Interestingly enough, I'm not a chip
Mm.
person,
Yeah.
but anything in sweet form, whether it's cookies or cake and candy and
Mhm.
ice cream, like all of the things.
Yeah.
And I'm doing it for so long, you know,
Mhm.
and I think that that's also important, because I don't think anybody like came to this in their 50s. If we're using food when we're stressed, we're looking to
Yeah.
manage our feelings, and we deserve to manage our
Yeah.
feelings. But
Yes.
what is the methodology? And the food, we go to it because it tastes good, it feels good, it's fun, it's not going to
Mhm.
hurt us. And then, I mean, the reality is that it can
Yeah.
afterwards, and the question is like, how long does it feel good? Is it until the food is gone? Is it till it stops tasting good?
Mhm.
Because after
Do
a
you feel
while,
guilty?
there's that.
Or gut rot.
or
You're like,
all of those things at once,
Yeah.
right? And
yeah.
so, finding it's not just eliminating the clutter in our lives so we don't get stressed, because there are things that are completely out of our control. Stress is going to come at us.
Mhm.
And then the question is, when that happens, how are we going to manage those really uncomfortable feelings? Are we going to go to food? Or, I mean,
Yes.
at the end of the day, my father was a drug addict. That's what
Mhm.
he did when he, was feeling however he was feeling. I would imagine mostly stress, that drugs were his answer. And interestingly enough, his father was a big time gambler. He would argue, he would be like,
Mm.
no, I'm just a player, but players don't like
Yeah.
lose family businesses and, things like
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
And so I recognized like that was the thing that gave him a high and made him feel good. And my dad, it is quite literally a high. And for me, it was food. And we all would benefit from looking at other ways to manage our feelings, whether it's, you know, exercise or journaling or calling a friend, or there are so many things we can be doing. We just have to learn how to make that routine and habitual as opposed to showing up and mindlessly. Don't we end up eating half of it before we're like, what just happened?
Totally. Yes. And you're like, you're looking at something like, sometimes you're shocked, like, did I really eat all of it? And you're kind of looking around even under the table. Like I know I had like 10 cookies here and then they're all gone. Did I really just eat them all? And
or you get the family screaming, who ate all the ice cream bars?
Yeah.
So, who is what majority of your clients? Like, what is the population of majority of your clients?
The majority of them would be middle-aged women. I mean, predominantly, you know, like between 35 and 60. I think that it's an ambitious woman who is putting everybody else first, is overwhelmed by her calendar, overwhelmed by the people, the 24-hour news cycle, overwhelmed by work, and it's everything weighing down on her. And often that is coming out either in weight issues or just general health and wellness issues.
Yeah.
Have you had, and this is my other question, with the popularity of, and I don't know what I can't like cannot say on YouTube too, you know how that is, like, cause this will be on YouTube, but with the popularity of the weight loss injections that are out there, you know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
You know, and the several different types. And, you know, there's no doubt that my question is like, no doubt that they work for people, and especially people, you know, maybe that are, you know, diabetic that really need those A1C numbers to come on down. Have you had, this is like a catch 22 because like people feel that when they stop those medications, those injections, that the weight automatically gets back on. So you're almost like stuck when you start something like that, taking those injections. You're great, you know, the weight comes off and you know, you're looking great and all this other stuff, but there are side effects, of course, like anything else. Have you had clients and had success with people who said, I don't want to take these anymore, and I don't want to have that weight gain that almost within a week or two that they all of a sudden remember they're hungry? Because that stuff makes you forget. Does that stuff makes you not think of food? Because I'll be honest, I've taken it. And along with taking them, you know, it's like you don't want to gain that weight back, but you don't want to deal with those side effects. Have you had a lot of success with people that transition from that?
I have so many feelings about this, so I'm happy you asked.
Oh, good.
One is they're here for a reason, and it's because there are people out there who need the GLP-1s. That, you know, there is a hormonal issue that with understanding levels of satiety, and if you're struggling with that, you deserve help. I spent so many years telling people, no, it's just diet and exercise, diet and exercise. That it's not. If it was just diet and exercise, we would all like be walking the red carpet in sexy dresses, like, you know, all the actresses at the Golden Globes last week. So the reality is that it very much is a necessity for a lot of people. And you're right. Someone who is living with diabetes or is pre-diabetic or has other significant health issues or is at a significantly high weight and has struggled and struggled and struggled. I think one of the things that's key to that is slow and steady. You know, the taking the medication and leading up to a higher dose should take an incredibly long time, and the weaning process should take a really long time. And I think that's often one of the problems is that like we get to our goal weight and then we think like everything's over and we can go back and do things the way we had been doing it. And that's why drastic diets don't work. You know, we need to make behavior change in sustainable ways, which means baby steps. It does not mean diving into the deep end, which taking the GLP-1s can be. I have had a couple of clients who did the GLP-1s at the same time. And that's what's key, that too many people are going to the doctor, getting the medication, and then they are not working with someone either on nutrition or
Yes.
not working with a nutritionist or a therapist or a coach or someone who could guide them
Mhm.
on the behavior change aspect of it, because it's just
Mhm.
an opportunity to go back to everything that we were doing,
Yes.
or not learning how to adjust emotionally and mentally to the changes that are happening in our bodies.
Mm.
The coaching has too much of a connection to this. And I'll tell you something, when I started this program, I was like, well, we'll do a little clutter and we'll do a little nutrition and we'll do a little exercise. I have all the experience. And the reality is that my clients are at their most successful when we don't talk about those things, and we spend 99% of our time, okay, maybe 90% of our time talking mindset. This is a mindset first methodology. It is
Mhm.
remove the clutter and become more capable of doing the things that you need to do that serve your body, those things that are in line with your values and goals. And which also means like one ridiculously simple goal at a time. If someone wants to talk nutrition, I'll talk nutrition with them. Someone wants to talk
Yeah.
exercise, I'll talk exercise. But my goal is that we first deal with all of the clutter that's there.
Mhm.
Mhm.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm.
I love your whole strategy too, because you're right. It's you can focus in on one, of the things like exercising a little bit more, or, diet changes, but it really is that mindset change, and that getting into better habits and having that mindset change that's going to help them to be successful in those other
Oh,
things.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mhm.
more capable of anything.
Yeah.
It's the physical and mental
Mhm.
clutter in our lives that gets in the way of us advancing in our careers, going back to grad school, maintaining healthy relationships, that whether that's with our significant others or our kids or our parents or siblings or friends.
Mhm.
The clutter is just can I tell you a little bit about like what actually is clutter? Because I
Yeah.
still feel like everyone who's listening is thinking about like the pile of papers on their desk, or all of the little
Yes.
You're like,
tchotchkes, thingamajigs, whatever has been left
Yeah.
on, or maybe in my case, like too many tubes of different shades of lipstick. Um, and I've cleaned a lot of that out over the years.
I keep buying the same shade of lipstick. I
Uh,
have 15 tubes of the same dusty rose.
Okay, I love that. And here's my problem is that I usually layer my lipstick. So like I've never leave the house without 3 different colors. And how did you get that color? I don't know. We'll figure it out next time. But I
Is it
like
ever the
doing
same
it that way.
twice?
I'm not sure I know. It's just like my grandmother making a recipe. Oh, a little of this and a little of that. Great.
right?
That's
Never
the
tastes the
lipstick. Yeah.
same the second time.
So I like to talk about all forms of clutter. So like the
Yes.
calendar, I keep saying yes to everybody. So I'm not on, my calendar.
Yes.
Or,
Yeah.
digital clutter, I mean, what
Yeah.
we've encountered in the last 10 to 20 years, 5,000 photos, and like half of
Mm.
them are like duplicates of the other one. It's just that in one, I'm smiling like this, and the other one, I'm smiling like it's just fairly different,
That's so true.
and text messages and emails, and I've gotten really good about the email thing. I still
Oh.
struggle with the text thing because you have that group text chat with those 2 girlfriends, but then there's another group chat that has one other girlfriend in it because of something you were doing together. But then there's another one
Mhm.
that has like all the girlfriends in it, and you never know which one do I open? Who am I responding to? Like,
Mhm.
what if I say the wrong thing to the wrong person? So, like all of that just, and you could hear already, like that takes me extra time that I have to go and then search for that
Mm.
text. So
Right.
that's one piece of it. I like to talk about people clutter. There are just people in our lives that maybe don't belong there anymore. I think
Mm.
this is another one of those things that like the older I get, the better I am at. I don't need to make plans with that person just because I think like, oh, I should, as opposed to I have only so many hours in the day, hours in the week.
Mm,
Who do I want to be spending that time with?
Yeah.
right,
And
right.
yeah, and I think that that's something that, we get better at as we age.
Mhm.
I like paper clutter is like an obvious, clothing, accessories,
Yes.
all of that is obvious. But I really think that it's the mental and emotional clutter, what an emotional clutter like, old traumas,
Mm,
things that we haven't dealt with in the past that are still kind of
yes.
like swarming around. I do want to like differentiate between mental clutter and emotional clutter. And people who have significant challenges with clutter, like when we start, using the word hoarder, um, so many hoarders come from trauma. That the
Yeah,
hanging on to
yes.
things is scarcity, it's loss. And I mean, those are the
Wow.
people where I say, I want to work with you, but you also need to be in therapy. That a therapist needs to be managing someone who
Yes.
is dealing with, previous traumas.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is amazing. I was just going to
Yeah.
ask you when you were talking about the emotional and the mental
Mhm.
clutter, and you were saying like, people and it's like the letting and hoarders came to mind too. It's the letting go of stuff, the letting go of things, and the scarcity mindset, like you were just saying. And I just never, thought about. I mean, I think it's amazing and remarkable, Melanie. Honestly, that the connection that you've made with that is
Yeah.
unbelievable.
I had read something a long time ago about how a messy kitchen meant that it was harder to eat healthy. Totally makes sense. If I have a cluttered
Mhm.
kitchen, I am not pulling out the cutting board and a knife and fruits and vegetables and making like a beautiful, healthy meal. I'm just picking up
Yes.
my phone and calling the pizza place or ordering in. And
Yes.
the last thing I want to do is demonize food, because Chinese food is great and pizza's great and all
Yes.
those things. But if I'm going to eat those things,
Yes.
I want it to be something that I planned for and I'm looking forward to, and maybe figured out how to fit it into everything else that I ate that day or that week. I don't want
Mhm.
those things to be things that I order last minute because my kitchen is stressing me out and it's going to take too long to create
Yes.
space to cook. And then if the kitchen
Mhm.
is cluttered, it's also contributing to the stress and everything else that we were
Mhm.
saying before. And so, like the kitchen, when I talk to people, I often say, like, let's deal with the clutter in the kitchen first, because it can lead to at least making some better food choices. And I'm
Mhm.
also not, I am the expert in this thing that we're talking about, but each individual client is an expert on themselves. So if they said, you know what, I don't really need to deal with the kitchen, I need to deal with my office or the living room or the
Mhm.
bedroom. Bedroom clutter gets in the way of us being able to sleep well. And when we're not
It's
sleeping
true.
well, we don't eat well, we're not exercising enough, and we get in this really vicious cycle. And
Yeah.
Yes.
for women of a certain age, sleep is a challenge for a host of other medical reasons. I don't need to make it worse because the last thing I look at before I go to bed are piles of laundry or a stack of books or
Mhm.
papers, places that they don't belong.
Right.
Yes. Gets overwhelming.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't, I mean, don't know where to start when it
That's
gets that
exactly
bad.
it. So, ridiculously simple starts. Like it has to be, the goal has to sound dumb. Like
Yeah.
if I said out loud to you, this is what I'm going to do, it's so ridiculously simple. You're like, that's not a goal. That's a perfect goal, because that's the thing that I do. I do it quickly. It feels good. I pat myself on the back and congratulate the fact that I accomplished this little thing. And
Yeah.
then I am more motivated and inspired for the next thing. And more importantly, more confident that I can do it because I proved I can do the little thing. And then as I
Mhm.
keep doing those little things, they become the building blocks to like really complex goals and
Mhm.
achievements. So it
Mhm.
has to be so small because the stuff is overwhelming.
Yeah.
Well, and like you said, if you have like piles of papers or piles of books, books is my bad thing. It's a good thing, but if they're not like in their rightful spot, you got piles of clothes, you got piles of, so like you're looking at all the stuff like, where do you even, like, I can see where somebody they get paralyzed because of to even start.
That is
Yes.
exactly it. We get so stuck. And it makes sense that it does, because we keep putting it off. And as we're putting it off, the piles are getting
Yes.
bigger, or the closets are getting overstuffed. And that stresses us out. So the clutter gets worse and the clutter gets worse. And it's just it is physically exhausting to manage clutter
Yes.
around us, whether it's a little bit of clutter or a lot of clutter. And so like that paralyzation it's significant.
Yes.
And the biggest problem with that is that in our heads, we have to complete it all. Well, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a long weekend and I'm going to clean the house in the weekend. No, you're not.
Yes. Yeah.
Unless you have a clean home and literally all you're doing is sweeping and mopping and like touching things up. But if
Yes.
you're dealing with clutter, it has to be, so you know what? I am going to do the sock drawer. Like that's it. Like
Yeah.
just do the sock drawer. Maybe you do all the undergarment drawers, but not I'm going to clean out every drawer. I'm going to clean out the entire closet. And I can pretty much promise you, if you made the goal to like just clean out the sock drawer, you'll probably do more than that, which is a huge success, as opposed to saying I'm going to do the whole thing and then I'm so overwhelmed I don't even get started, and now I'm binge watching TV all day and feeling guilty for binge watching TV as opposed to getting
Yes.
something done.
It's like that meme. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's hilarious. It's like, I'm gonna clean the attic, or I'm gonna clean my bedroom or something. And then the next picture you see is the person, they got the hats on their head, sitting on the floor. That's me.
That is so funny. Actually, Melanie, that's actually a question that I was going to ask. Is very similar to, because the same thing too. You're trying everything on it. Have you noticed, like, while you had clients who've gone through, have self discovery? Have some of your clients discovered, like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize all my life I had undiagnosed AD or PTSD, or this whole process of the decluttering and the things that you've been talking about. I'm sure at some point there's so many aha moments for your clients. They're like,
Yeah.
My God,
Well, so the thing is that my clients in the beginning, when I first started this, were all coming to me from my previous life. They came to me for weight loss, and many of them came to me for weight loss saying, but I don't have clutter. And that was the discovery as time went by. Oh, wait a minute, I do have clutter. And and like, I don't want to make someone feel bad. I have been there, done that. But that realization, there is something that's getting in my way. And so it may not be like I have a ton of stuff. I'll give one example. I had a client, she said, you know what? My clutter is financial. And I was like, oh, I'm not a big finance person, so we might have to bring someone else in for this. But what was happening, it's multifold. So managing my feelings with food. I lost 65 pounds. I stopped using the food all the time. Nothing that I do is perfect. Nothing that I do is all the time. It is most of the time. We are successful when we do things most of the time. So 65 pounds, I went down 7 sizes. And so, and I think with every little bit I lost, I thought that was it. Like I won't possibly be able to lose more. I won't possibly be able to lose more. And I was like over shopping, like significantly over shopping. Like the 20 became an 18, I replaced clothing. 18 became a 16, I replaced clothing. 16, 14. And I went down, and I think at one point I realized that there's a high that we get from shopping, whether you're doing it in person or you're doing it online or you're doing both. We get this real high, and then the stuff comes, and sometimes we're really excited, and sometimes it's like, why did I spend my money on that? And so one of the things that this client was finding was, I'm really spending in a way that helps me manage uncomfortable feelings. Of course, now, at least, like, they weren't like seriously into debt, but for her, clearing the clutter was, you know what? I'm going to pay this down. I'm going to pay that down.
Yes.
I'm going to stop shopping for things that I don't need.
Yes.
And I loved hearing that because I hadn't even considered that as clutter. Yes, I knew that over shopping was a way to manage feelings, but I
Mm,
had not really put two and two together by like using the actual word clutter with reference to
mhm,
finances.
Right. That's amazing.
mhm.
It's so much.
It's
So
It's
much.
awesome
so
though. It's
much.
like,
I have so many aha things going in my head
yeah.
right now.
Me too.
It,
Oh,
I work with um, a women's business group in my neighborhood. It's like a relatively new
Mm,
business group. And I was at a meeting yesterday and I met a woman. She's going to be on my podcast. I can't wait to have her. She's an artisan. And what she does is takes the baby blankets and the shirts and jewelry and other things. And she makes these, I'm going to do a terrible job of explaining what she does. They're like, she weaves them into these wall hangings
oh,
and
wow.
you both have kids, right?
Yes.
adult
Okay.
children. Yeah.
So remember the white blanket with the blue and pink stripes that
Yeah.
came home from the hospital? Like every baby has
Yes.
that. And she did this beautiful video of all the before stuff, and one of them was that blanket. And I was like, oh, we all have that blanket. And it made this beautiful wall hanging, like very artsy looking. And
Wow.
I want to work closely with her because she's doing what we need when we're like, but I can't possibly get rid of the baby clothes. I can't possibly get rid of that stuff.
Yes.
So should we hang on to some of it? Sure, because I plan on being a grandmother someday. And when I'm a grandmother, they're going to have my stuff and my kids' stuff. But did I need to save the stuff that had a stain on them just because it was a funny thing or just because,
Uh-huh.
great grandma so and so gave it to them? And so I love when things get repurposed. We have blankets in the house, quilts that we had made from the old t-shirts.
Yes.
So
I've
like I
seen
have one,
those.
it's like my concert shirts, some college
Mhm.
shirts, some high school shirts and sports teams. And what a great way to honor times in your life, right? Like that were very meaningful, but the t-shirts take up a lot more room and we're
Mhm.
not wearing them, we're not enjoying them. But when the blanket is out, oh my
Mm.
gosh, I love seeing things get repurposed.
Yes.
Yes, yes. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, I've seen those blankets and I just
Yeah,
absolutely, my friend Christy had one made for her husband with his old t-shirts because he didn't want to let him go. And
yeah.
the blanket is so amazing. It's like a quilt, right?
Yeah,
Kind of,
Mm.
mhm. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
I
that's
love
so neat.
mine. I love mine.
Uh-huh.
There are a couple shirts on it like that I wasn't wearing because they were from like when I was 12 or 13. Like I
Yeah.
I couldn't fit them into one leg, or one arm into them. But it allowed me to like relive, that.
Yeah.
And I mean, a lot of people can say history is clutter or like spending too much time like remembering the old times. Remember the good old days? Now are the good old days. If we spend
Yes,
too
yes,
much time
yeah.
in the past, we're not enjoying the present.
Right.
So
Mhm.
there has to be balance in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed, agreed. Absolutely.
Melanie, you mentioned a book that you said was you found it inspirational and helpful and that you would recommend to other 50 plus women, and it's called Embrace Your Magnificence, Richer, Abundant.
hmm
Mm.
Fabienne Fredrickson. So
Yeah.
she is a world famous business coach. Um,
Mhm.
and one of the reasons I'm drawn to her is because she's a business coach that takes a more spiritual approach to it.
Mhm.
And in fact, it's like my own program. It's a mindset first methodology. So it's not a lot of
Mhm.
time talking about how do you make spreadsheets and how, and like what marketing platform are you using and some of the details like that, but more like digging into like what are the things that I've been telling myself that make me believe that I can't be a great businesswoman. And really her what she says
Mm.
is like what resonated with me. And it was, as she says, I'm going to get it almost right. I want women to make their own money and lots of it.
Yes,
And I was like,
yes.
oh, I'm
You're
in
like,
for that.
yes.
And as a
Gene and I were
result,
just talking about that.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, lots
Yeah.
of it, lots
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
So and we'll have me back on when I've made lots of it. But for now, I'm
You can tell us
I'm
how.
working on getting there. But she talks about, or she coaches women so that they approach being in business as women, as
Mhm.
opposed to aggressively trying to be like a man in business. And
Mm.
I'm not a man. Like, I'm a former athlete, so I feel like, I was always like one of the guys with my guy friends in high school. That doesn't make me think like a man. It just means that I'm good at sports and I love doing that.
Right.
And so yeah, and the book was like a love story to her daughter,
Oh,
that when she
I
grows
love that.
up, that she would respect
Yeah.
herself as a woman and she would be able to do her own thing. So yeah, I think it's a fantastic
Beautiful.
book. Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to check that out. That sounds
Yeah,
like.
definitely. Have you
Mm.
written a book, Melanie?
I'm sorry.
Have you written a book as well?
Have I have. I have a mini book. It's an ebook. And it's all about what we've been talking about, exploring the relationship between weight and clutter,
Yes.
and simple ways to get started. It's like I'd like to say it's like the jump start to my program. This is what I need to do to get started. And I'm going to
Mhm.
start. I know once people start doing those basic things, they're all in. Oh, no, no. You know what? I want to do so much more than this, because the book, I talk about the kitchen a lot. Like I said before, I really
Mhm.
feel like if we're approaching decluttering for the purpose of weight loss, let's start in the place where we eat. Although
Mhm.
every room in our home affects our weight in some way. If the bedroom is cluttered, like
Mhm.
we mentioned before.
Yeah.
I live in a New York City apartment, so the rooms are small to begin with.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But then it's messy. I can't take out the yoga mat and do exercise videos in the living room.
Mhm.
And if there's clutter in there, I don't want to work out because, I'm feeling down.
Yeah.
And what do I know? But if I'm feeling down, probably the best thing for me to do is exercise. But if the clutter is what's bringing me down, I first have to attack the clutter. So I talk about, the basics in that.
Yeah.
Mm. Mhm.
Where can people find your ebook?
I sent you guys a link for that?
Yes, I think you
Because I
did.
want
Let me double check in.
awesome, awesome. If not, I'll
Let me
get
double
that to
check.
you because I want your listeners to get it for free.
That's I have your face. We have the links, and we're going to put those in the once we post to Spotify, YouTube,
Right.
and then here on Facebook. But I
I
have
don't
the
see it there.
MelanieCohen.podia.com. Is that the
That's my
one? Or
website. That's
Yeah.
my
okay,
website. So yeah, let
I
me
don't
make sure
think
that I send you the link for the free
I
book.
don't
Yeah.
think I see that. I see your social medias, your YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn. I don't see anything that would
Okay.
have a
I'll make
link to
sure
the
as
what.
soon as we're
Yeah.
done recording, I will send that
Yes.
to you so you
That'd be
have it.
great.
Okay,
Yeah, because
awesome.
we'll include
Yeah,
it
I would
so
love
folks
that.
can tune into that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
absolutely.
All right, I have to ask you, just because I'm a fellow former gymnast, that now I show my kids the picture of me doing the splits in the high school picture, and I'm like, yeah, that was me, really, for sure. What's your
You mean you can't do it anymore?
Oh my gosh, so funny. I don't even know. I don't even know if it's funny, but I have to laugh.
I'll tell you something. When I started my weight loss journey, I was 30-ish. And I took my daughters for their first gymnastics classes, and I noticed they had adult tumbling classes, and I was like, I wonder what that means. And so my present to myself when I reached my goal weight were adult tumbling classes. And when I say adult, like there were two of us in our 30s, we were the old ladies, and then everybody else was like, there were some, it's in New York City, so they were like NYU students taking the classes, meeting some kind of like
Mhm.
gym requirement or something. Um, but nothing felt better for me than going back and doing it in a fun way for me. My parents weren't paying. It wasn't so that I could get college scholarships or go to the Olympics. I wasn't getting yelled and screamed at. I wasn't getting the verbal abuse that I got in the gym all the time. it was so satisfying. Unfortunately, in my
Yeah.
50s, there's no more gymnastics classes.
I'll tell you, we have really good friends and they're younger than us. And so they have 5 young kids. And one of them had a birthday party at the local gymnastics gym here. And I walked in there and it brought, you know, how the smell and
The smell, the
it
talk,
brings you, brings you right back, right? So
it does.
my young mind, I'm thinking, oh my gosh. And my husband's like, don't do this. And so I'm out there and I'm jumping on the trampolines and doing all this stuff. Oh my God, it hurt so bad the next day.
I will tell you my first day after taking, actually, it wasn't even the next day. The place that I was taking the gymnastics class at, I had to take the bus there, and the
Yeah.
bus came to pick up. And literally, he could see me struggling, and he did that thing where, you know, like the bus lowers down for
Lower
the
the
old
bus, yeah.
people. Yeah, it was tough.
That's
Oh no.
hilarious.
That's funny. I love that.
I think I lost you guys for a second. I hope I didn't
Oh,
miss
Oh, we
anything
got you
good.
back. We got you
we
back.
were
Okay,
just
good.
saying that was hilarious.
Yeah, that was hilarious. How
Oh,
thoughtful of the bus driver too.
And it wasn't me now. I hit 54. I was like 32 or 33, but I must have looked 90 because you could just see my whole body. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a special time in my life doing gymnastics. It was rough, so much toxic scrutiny over the scale, and
Yeah.
you're
Love
not
it.
working hard enough, you're not doing enough, yada yada yada. And the reason I got into the gymnastics was because I loved flying through the air and I loved dancing and
Mhm.
tumbling and swinging on the bars. And all of that love died hard because of the way I was
Mhm.
treated. So getting to experience it as an adult was really special.
Oh, I bet.
that's
Yes,
wonderful.
yes. Yeah. It's like reliving your childhood almost in a way.
Yeah, but better. Like I think so
But
much of
better,
what we
yes.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
I want to say everything's better, but we know that's not true. But I've definitely learned how to love the experiences that we have in life more and without
Mhm.
taking them for granted the way I think a lot of us do when
Oh,
we're
yeah.
younger. Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely do. Mhm.
That's amazing. And do you feel like, I mean, kind of going back to clutter, the kind of the traumas from having to be yelled at and stuff like that, do you think you carried a lot of that heaviness with you?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I think I didn't realize how much I used food to manage my feelings because when I was in high school, I binged a lot, but I was also training 4 to 5 hours a day, 5 to 6 days a week. I could get away with it. It's one of the reasons why I gained weight so quickly when I quit when I was about 17,
Mm,
much to the chagrin of my parents who were like, oh my gosh, now we're going to have to pay for college. There's no scholarships.
Mm.
And so they were pretty hard on me for stopping.
mm,
But I was already using food to manage feelings, and now my feelings were really strong because I had identified myself as a gymnast. Like that was my identity. And so when I
Yeah.
stopped doing it, it was like, who am I? Just some random teenager,
Mm.
which isn't a bad thing, but I felt like it then. So I gained the weight so quickly,
mhm.
and it,
Mm.
it leveled out. And then, freshman 15 and, my sophomore year, I was like, freshman 15 was so
Mm.
much fun. Let's do it again.
Yeah.
And yeah, when I tell people I was over 200 pounds, I remind them that I was a gymnast. So I'm not tall. 200 was a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing.
Mhm.
Yeah, I remember some of the yelling. I was not great at being a gymnast, so I could do splits really well. But I just did it because I loved to do it. But we would go to the summer gyms, and there was a place where the head coach at the place
Mm.
was not a nice person. And I question to this day how many young girls who walked out of that gym traumatized by how much he yelled and threw chairs, and it was just
Mm,
terrible.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
mm,
It's the calling preteen and teenage girls fatty,
Yeah.
piggy, chubby, whale. I mean, like if there's a way to describe someone as being fat in a unacceptable way, those were all the things that we heard. And at the best shape of any of our lives, you know?
I can't even imagine that because I always struggled with weights, and but I've had a lot of trauma growing up too. So I'm making so many. Just talking to you has made so many connections and stuff like that. Like
Mm,
my parents didn't have enough food growing up, from an Eastern European country. So we were actually, my brother and I, they were like forced us to eat. They were like saying,
Yeah.
like, if you don't finish
yeah.
everything in on your plate, they would always refer back to when they lived in Eastern Europe. And my dad used to say, we used to beg for a piece of bread, and you've got this huge plate of food, and you're not even going to finish it. And so it was almost like being, the weight problem for me and my brother growing up was my parents' trauma.
Mm-hmm.
My
Right.
parent I realize now was
Right.
their trauma
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
scarcity that they had.
Yes.
That's exactly it. Right.
Wow.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting because I think, we've all gotten the story, finish what's
Yeah.
on your plate. There are children starving
Yeah.
in like name the country. If you say where
Yeah.
the children were starving, you give away your age. Like, because every decade, is something different.
Yes.
And I was so determined to teach my kids that they didn't have to finish what was
Oh,
on their plate to
yes.
honor someone. But I think that's because I one of those days when I was really little, before they stopped. I mean, because I got to a point in my life where people were like, "Don't eat that. That'll make you gain weight. You'll never make weigh-in. You'll be fat. Yada yada
Yeah.
yada." But before that, I think I said to my grandfather once, "Fine, then pack it up and send it to them." I don't know if it was the first time or the last time my grandfather hit me. And I was just determined, like, let my kids um, appreciate that they have,
Yeah.
and not feel guilty that other people don't have. And I had my
Yes.
kids doing
Yes.
community service. We worked at a food pantry
Mhm.
in our
Yes.
neighborhood
Yeah.
regularly. And like, I think they got the message.
Yeah.
Um, that I wish so many more of us, like, don't feed
Mhm.
people because other people are unfed. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. 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 That's a whole nother level of like the guilt or and now I realize my parents between not wanting to get them angry and then feeling guilty that they and now it made sense to me because my parents were not overweight, and
Mm,
I was looking, me and my brother, like, why? I'm like, couldn't have been like, you put genetics into it, and my parents were not overweight, not,
mhm.
but my brother and I were, and and stuff, and now
Yeah.
it just made so much sense, you know?
And guilt,
Oh,
it is all the clutter, like the guilt,
Yes.
and I was just talking to someone about the guilt that we hold, like, from that conversation we had like 30 years ago
mhm,
with that one girl, and we wish she didn't say what we
yeah.
said because it was hurtful,
Yes.
and we're still hanging on to it today.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
It is so heavy, the guilt that we hold.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, totally, totally heavy, and then being guilted too, like, by, learning not to take, I think, guilt personally, like other people, like
Right.
my mother's a travel agent of guilt trips, okay? So it's like
Good
That's
one.
great.
Good one.
she'll send you anywhere you wanna go, like, you wanna go, but I mean, you know what I'm saying? But it's like, I mean, I at some point, like now, after actually when I turned 50 is when I realized I cannot carry this bag anymore. I cannot carry this
Right.
anymore. That was
Yeah.
my aha when I turned
Yeah.
50, was like, I will not, guilt me all you want, but you know what I mean? I
I
ain't
can't
going
pull
there.
myself together right now. That was like,
I think I still hang on to it.
yeah.
No, I'm a Jewish mother. Like I have a Jewish mother. I had Jewish grandmothers. Like the guilt just runs in the genes
Oh,
so deeply.
Yeah. Oh
oh,
God.
it's so bad. I know. It's so funny though. I mean, but some of it, I mean, now when I look back on it, it's just like some of the stuff that you were guilted, about was just so ridiculous,
So
When
ridiculous.
you got to have a sense of humor about it too, because it's like
Yes.
you
Yeah.
have
Oh my
to
gosh.
laugh a little bit about
What
it.
I mean, what is life without humor? Oh, I don't know.
I
I'd like to
Right.
think
No,
I have a good
exactly.
sense of humor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I got in trouble because like after a while I was a smart ass, because like you said to your grandfather, fine, well then send it to them, you know.
Love
Yeah,
it.
I
and
got in a lot.
I am probably not the only child that said that. I am sure there were
Oh yeah,
kids across the country getting smacked upside the head because they somehow recommended that they should, FedEx the food to, insert country here. When the reality was, it's like it didn't need to go to another country. It's right here. Like it exists right
yeah,
here. That's why we
yeah.
work at the soup kitchen because
Hmm.
they're right here. They need it right
Yeah,
here. Yeah.
yeah.
So we've got a
We also,
couple comments, ladies. So
oh, we do. Oh, okay. Let's
yeah,
take a
so
look at
so
that. What's going on?
Jennifer Bedard Parker says, love that term mental clutter. I don't think I have ever heard such a good description of that unnecessary white noise and outdated, unrealistic expectations.
White noise. That's
Yeah,
perfect.
that's and then Jennifer Murphy Marsh said, tumbling for adults. That sounds hilarious. I love it. Yeah.
Can I say something as a
Yeah.
woman over 50? I think
Yeah.
I can't go work out now because of a few health issues. One of them is like balance issues. And I get too dizzy. But the other reason I can't take an adult tumbling class anymore is because my bladder can't do it. All it takes is one or two jumps up and down, and you're reminded of why you can't do this anymore.
That's
There's a
so
lot of
funny.
products out there for that, though. Depends on what kind you want to use.
Depends. She
Depends on
said
see what you
depends.
did there.
Wah, wah.
Well,
Oh my
this
gosh.
was
I think
wonderful.
you
Oh
find
my
your
gosh.
niche.
I just
Yeah.
love all of the different kinds of clutter that you mentioned today, Melanie. I just like
Hmm.
things I never even really thought of. I mean, when I see clutter, I'm like, God, I gotta clean that up. But you don't think
Yes.
about how mentally that's messing with your mind
Yeah.
and your psychological, like what I can do and what I
Mm.
can't do. So I absolutely love your mission.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Mhm.
It's so informative, and this is one of those conversations when, when we're all done and I'm, going to be thinking about this for days, and you're going to follow all of your social medias, check out your
Yes.
ebooks and stuff. And thank you so much for that. It's so grateful to have you on.
Thank you. I could talk about this for days.
I love that passion. Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. I mean, that's why it works, and you're so successful. You're so passionate about it.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
love when you can actually see like the light bulb go off over someone's
Yes.
head. And
Yes.
and because they realize that there's clutter and how different your clutter is from my clutter, from your clutter,
Yes.
and to the next
Yes.
person's. Yeah. Mhm.
My gosh. Awesome.
You
Thank you
gotta
so much,
make shirts or
Melanie.
something like we're all cluttered up or something like that. I don't know. Merch. That's what Deb calls it. Merch.
Merch. Tell Gina all the time. We gotta work on merch.
I might be planning for a few things, but then my hesitation in creating merch is that I'm creating clutter for someone.
Yeah, right.
That's
All
funny.
you're thinking about when I said,
Are you feeling guilty about
we went to see someone the other day who just moved into their like brand new beach house on the Jersey Shore, and we couldn't wait to go see it. And this is someone who, another coach, I've been on her podcast. We talk about
Mhm.
clutter together all of the time, and we brought her something, and I was like, "We have a gift for you. You don't have to keep it. It's fun." And it was,
You could
and
give
it
it
was the
away.
You're like, but I don't want
I
it back.
something like that. Yeah.
Mm,
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show,
yeah,
Melanie. It was such a pleasure
Thank
getting to
you.
know you and everything
mm,
that you're doing, and just
Thank you.
such changes you're helping people to make every day. I think that is like so remarkable. So thank you so much for everything that you're doing for
yes.
folks
Thank
who
you so
need your
much,
help.
Melanie.
Thank you for
Yeah.
letting me send the message out.
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
yes. We all appreciate it so much. Thank you.